Hesh, maybe now Besh. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be talking about some dev server changes that have happened through a Datamine which has been supplied by Zabi. Now, as always, it is lovely going over the Datamines, and I would like to thank Zabi for putting this out there for the community. There will be a link in the description to the Datamine itself. Make sure to go thank Zabi as always. It is very kind of him to do this. At the same time, the dev server was open today, and I also believe it's going to be open tomorrow, as long as there aren't any issues with it, obviously depending on when you watch this video. So if you want to get involved in some of the testing of the new mechanic which they're trying out, which is the pressure mechanic, it's going to be the replacement for hull break, and it is kind of interesting. Make sure to check it out. Make sure to get on, give it a good test. If you have any feedback, make sure to put it in the forums. If you find any bugs, make sure to put them there as well. Let's try and make sure that as a set of individuals, we will be able to improve on top of the hull break mechanic by creating or by helping create this new system, which hopefully will be better than it. So let's go through the changes and let's have a look. The first one is they have implemented the pressure damage, obviously, on the dev server itself. This was actually something that was implemented on some of the older dev servers, but then taken away when it went to live build. So it's interesting to see it's back now. My guess is this is going to be something which is implemented on a separate update, which isn't like a major update, but at least they're looking for feedback now. And it's nice to see over the last week or so, we've got a bunch of these things from Gadget. You know, the PvE assault stuff, you know, or the PvE game modes that they're trying out. Really cool to see that they're actually setting it up to try out. Also, with the dev servers being open, I think it's nice to see that, you know, we can get a little bit of testing done and give our thoughts to these ideas. They also changed HP threshold for fuses from 5 to 0, so they just completely nuked them. And then also a new damage type was added, which was the Tandem Pre-Charge. This is some kind of KE damage, which is given to Tandem Atgms. So my guess is they're going to perform slightly differently compared to what they did before. All ERAs as well now have a 0.33 modifier against Tandem Atgms, so it's the Tandem Atgms still should be able to go through specific types of ERA depending on how all of that works. And then high hardness RHA now has a 0.5 modifier against Tandem Atgms, so obviously the better ERAs which are in the game. Then we have HE base fuse, HETF and HEVT. They all now have this new pressure damage. Now, one thing to mention is Gaijin did actually do a devlog on the pressure damage stuff. We did go through it on a video maybe about a week ago, but I would definitely say go and give it a good read, because it is at least interesting. It's the improvements in the high explosive action of ammunition. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description for that as well, but definitely worth going over so you can understand what they're doing with the mechanic. I think it's pretty interesting in overall. Now, they also changed a bunch of different radars and stuff, so the RP5, the PS42, the ANAPG 26, and also the ANAPG 33 sensors, they now have a new parameter, which is set track mode, and this, I'm guessing, will just be you'll be able to change the mode and how it looks. They also changed a bunch of naval stuff, some ship optical sight things, so ship optical sights, the 3JB10 ADATs, and also ANVPS2 sensors. They've added some little areas or parameters to them as well, and then also a bunch of other radars and also systems or sensors also got some different parameters, such as set lost lock mode. So We'll have to see what comes with that. Obviously, it's kind of hard to tell what, is going to happen with those, especially since when it comes to radars, when it comes to systems like that, they seem to change quite a lot before they get released onto the live server, so it's hard to comment. Basically, all vehicles in the game, apart from a select few, now receive the new pressure damage stuff. So there is a few exceptions. My guess is just because these vehicles aren't ready to go. All the other ones modeled apart from these ones, and we did test out a lot of the vehicles trying to work out how pressure damage works. It seems like the idea is if it hits a target but doesn't penetrate it, then what it does is it creates a shockwave onto the target which can knock out the stuff behind the target. And obviously this is based around components, it's based around what you hit, it's based around all these factors, and we did test some of them out, and overall it did seem quite successful, at least for the mid-tier and the low-tier stuff. There's obviously some, interesting interactions here and there, but I would say overall this is positive. It also gives more of a reason to run stuff like HE on the big hunkers, stuff like the SU-152, and then obviously the KV-2 and things like that. The HESH also seemed pretty effective, at least on this version of the dev server. Also, they removed hull brake from a bunch of vehicles, so there wasn't any cross-contamination here. There was a few vehicles that kept hull brake, but the majority of them lost it. So that meant that we would, if you're on the dev server, definitely testing the new pressure mechanic. The CM11 as well now has a new 49mm plate between the engine and the crew compartment. I suppose this will help with the new mechanic, because it'll mean if you hit the engine with HE, it won't just blast straight through and annihilate the crew, which it did actually do when we were testing it on the T80. We hit the T80 in the engine, and it actually killed the crew behind us, which was kind of a surprise with this new kind of shockwave effect. But the CM11 getting extra armor in a place that doesn't really matter too much, it's not really going to change it. The AMR-35 ZT3, the H-35, S-35, South 40, and the Key Knee, they've all got new mudguards. Isn't that lovely? Just a nice little addition there. And the B1 BIS, the biggest change that we have seen, the B1 BIS has added 2 5mm exhaust covers. Watch out, the B1 BIS, one of the strongest heavy tanks around its BR, just got better. 5mm of armor around the exhaust covers. Watch out. It's so good. Anyway, the STR-V104, the STR-V81 RB52, they now have the hot tracks, which is lovely. What I found with the hot tracks is, and this was not really just with the hot tracks, they do look really nice. I've been playing a lot of the Centurion Mark V because Gaijin basically gave me a test drive of it, and I've been using it alongside stuff such as the Ratel 20 to try and get that thing spaded. And what I found is the tracks, because of the last updates, get knocked off so easily, to the point where I've had one 50 cal shell hit my track and it is broken. So it's a little bit annoying, but at least the track animations look really nice. The Tortoise now shoots the 12 smoke grenades into 2 6 salvos instead of a single 12, so more survivability for our boy the Tortoise. That I think is always nice to see. Then the Challenger 1, the inner layer of hull composites, the K modifier is going down from 1.6 to 1, that's a bit rough, but then the middle layer of hull composites, the K modifier is going from 0.1 to 0.05, and the CE modifier from 2.5 to 1.25. Why you gotta touch my Challenger? The Challenger 1 at 9.7, both of them, the Mark II and the Mark III, are very fun vehicles to play. They give you a different playstyle at 9.7. They have thermals, good reload, really nice hull down characteristics. You now have the Vickers Mark VII on board with it, and you also have the Oliphant Mark II, and now you're screwing with it. Leave it alone. It's a really fun vehicle. Just don't bother touching it. All 40mm plus ground shells received the new pressure damage. Basically, pressure damage is based off the amount of explosive filler that your shell has when it comes to, if it will actually do pressure damage. So that is something that has to be taken into account. But it's quite a minute figure. So generally, you still should be able to do something a lot with it. It seems to really affect open-topped vehicles quite a lot, stuff like the M10, and also stuff like the SDKFC 234s. What was actually kind of interesting is we were testing out it, and I think it's a known bug, but if you actually overmatch or overpressure the SDKFC 234, the open-top vehicle, or any other open-top vehicle, you can actually kill an ally with it by shooting at it, which is just a very odd one. The RB70, RB70 Mark II, and the ZT3A1 Swift, they now have a tracer in their tail, so therefore you can guide the missiles in as you go. Obviously, those are 2 Swedish missiles, and the new South African missile on the ZT3, the Ratel, which has been added, so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to use. Then, of course, they changed a bunch of ATGMs. They increased their fuse delay from 0.2 to 0.4 meters, and they received the new Tandem Atgm damage type. This is a lot of high-end ATGMs. We're talking about the Chrysanthema stuff. We're talking about a lot of high-end helicopter ATGMs too. The Pars 3, the Hot 3, the AGM 114K, stuff like that. So just watch out for ATGMs, especially from helicopters, doing even more damage now. The 40mm Akan M70Bs, the HEVTs have been changed, the HETFs have also been changed, basically a lot of the HETFs and the HEVTs around the place have been changed in some sort of way. So that isn't really a surprise. Basically, their penetration angle from 0 to 10, their fragment penetration has been lowered, fragment damage has been increased. The 11 to 20, the fragment damage has been increased, and then at higher ones they've also been increased. So basically all of these VT shells and TF shells should do more damage if they are able to get through, which is pretty nice. Then we have the RGB12, the RGB25, the RGB60, the Bofors 375mm, ARC M50 rockets. All of these have pressure damage as well, because pressure damage isn't just affecting shells, it's also affecting rockets, it's also affecting ATGMs, it's affecting pretty much everything, which is kind of interesting to think about. And then the last part, which is a bit worrying. Workshop and recipe changes. And a note in, a crafting event is imminent. Now, one thing you have to understand, around this time last year, which was announced on the 1st of April and started on the 1st of April, was the space race for the Object 279, which came along with an interesting space-themed April Fools, which you had to do to get certain camouflages for the vehicles. But to get the Object 279, it was a crafting event. Now, my guess is they're probably doing something similar now. We are kind of due for a crafting event. Normally they do one by this time this year at some point, and we haven't had a crafting event this year. We're technically one event behind. We normally have some kind of event in late January and into February. We didn't have one this year. Instead, we had the Battle Pass stuff. So to see another one is not a surprise. But I just have one thing to say. The general crafting events we've had, I have actually enjoyed. Because basically, all you have to do is play the game, and you get stuff. Pretty much as simple as that. Don't have to do any silly challenges, don't have to play meta stuff, can just play normal things. And that's always nice. The problem is, when it comes to these crafting events, is you are not able to get everything. They are specifically designed, so you have to pick and choose stuff which you want to get, and also stuff which you aren't able to get. Make it so, in these crafting events, you are able to get everything that is on offer. That is the only thing I ask when it comes to these, because even if it is incredibly hard to get everything, make it so you can. So therefore, an average player looking at this crafting event, the negativity goes away of having to pick and choose things, and they can just get everything that they want if they put in the work. And that doesn't mean monetary work, that means actual grind in the game. That's why stuff like the challenge events are always better than these things, because they're normally over longer periods of time, and also, if you do the challenges, you are guaranteed the vehicles. With the crafting events, that is not always the case, so that would be my one plea when it comes to these things. And also, I'm looking forward to the theme, because the themes for these crafting events have actually been pretty interesting. They have been interesting to see, and we'll make sure when it's announced, we let you guys know about it. But I am worried. I'm always worried when it comes to these crafting events, because there's always something hidden in them, and it's always something that you can't see on the first day of the event, whether it be something which only gets dropped so many times, or something which is required, which is a special thing that is a rare drop, or if there's some kind of challenge attached to it. There's always something which is around the place, but we will find out. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hosest Kishot, Hans, Bareen, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.